The man whose son I healed with a word. His son was dying 100 miles away, but I spoke a single word and showed him that my power knows no distance. Today, we're going to explore the story of a man whose faith was so great it surprised me. He believed in a miracle that was 100 miles away, and his belief proved that my power knows no distance. If you're ready to see how faith can move mountains, subscribe to our channel, like this video, and share this story with someone who needs hope. I was walking the dusty roads of Galilee, my feet moving to a rhythm of grace and purpose that the world could never fully understand. The sun was high and the air was thick with the scent of olive trees and wild thyme. I had just arrived in the town of Cana, a place of quiet homes and simple lives. The people there knew me. They had seen me at a wedding, turning water into wine, a first sign of the impossible possibilities that my kingdom was ushering in. They had returned to their ordinary lives, to their farming and their fishing, to the rhythms of a world that believed in what it could see, what it could touch, what it could measure. In that very town lived a man whose life was a portrait of both great authority and profound helplessness. He was a centurion, a man who had earned his rank in the Roman army, a symbol of the very power that held my people in subjugation. He was a man accustomed to command. He could speak a word and soldiers would move. He could give an order, and 100 men would obey without question. His life was built on a foundation of order, discipline, and the absolute certainty of his own power. He had come to this place from his home in Capernaum, a full day's journey away, and he had come to a place he did not know, to a man he had never met, in a desperate, last-ditch attempt to save the life of the one he loved most in the world. His life was ordinary in its routines, but his heart was not. Though he was a Roman, he had a deep and abiding love for the Jewish people. He had built a synagogue for them in Capernaum, an act of such extraordinary kindness that it had won him the respect of the local elders. He was a man of great wealth, but his true treasure was his son. The boy was his heart, his joy, the future he hoped to build. But the boy was sick, gravely ill, and all the medicine in the world, all the power of the Roman Empire, all the wealth of his family, could do nothing to save him. The man who had everything was now standing on the precipice of losing the one thing that truly mattered. The people of Cana, who had seen my miracles, had a simple faith. They believed that if I were present, if I were there in the room, if I could touch the sick, then a healing could occur. They had seen it with their own eyes. But this man's request was different. It was audacious. It was a cry of a father's broken heart, a plea that spanned a distance of 100 miles. The ordinary life of a man of power was about to collide with the extraordinary power of a God who knew no distance, no limits, and no boundaries. The peace of my afternoon was shattered by a moment of profound spiritual and emotional urgency. I was sitting and teaching when I felt a deep, piercing sorrow. It was the sorrow of a father, a desperate cry for help that had traveled 100 miles to reach me. The man had not come himself, but had sent a group of Jewish elders on his behalf. They were good men, but their faith was bound by the laws of what they knew. They came to me with a plea, not a command, a request that was filled with both hope and doubt. "Sir, his servant is sick in Capernaum. Please come and heal him. He is worthy to have you do this." They believed I had to be there, that my physical presence was necessary for the miracle to occur. I saw the desperation in their eyes, the deep love they had for this Roman man who had been so kind to them. They saw him as worthy, a man who had earned my favor, but I knew that he had come not because he was worthy, but because he was at the end of his road and he had nowhere else to turn. He had exhausted all his own power, and now he was turning to a power that was far greater than his own. His son was dying and the clock was ticking. Every moment was a battle against the inevitable. The crack in his ordinary world was the moment he realized his own limitations. He had a position of great power, but his power was utterly meaningless in the face of death. He could command a legion of soldiers, but he could not command a single fever to break. He could build a synagogue, but he could not rebuild the life of his own son. He was a man of great authority, but in this moment he was a man of total helplessness. He was forced to confront the truth that there was a power far greater than his own, a power that did not operate by the laws of this world. I felt the urgency in his heart, a deep, silent cry that was not a request, but a surrender. His son was at the breaking point 100 miles away, and the man who was accustomed to giving orders was now reduced to a simple, humble plea for a life to be saved. The faith he was about to show would not be based on my physical presence, but on the very nature of my being. The stage was set, the characters were in their places, and the great drama of faith and power was about to unfold. The Centurion's breaking point was not a moment of despair, but a profound and unexpected revelation. He had sent his servants a desperate last attempt to save his son's life. They were to travel to Cana, find me, and ask me to come to Capernaum to heal his boy. But as they journeyed, the Centurion was filled with a faith that transcended all he had ever known. He knew that I did not need to be physically present. He knew that my power was not bound by time or by space. He had a realization that was so profound, so utterly humbling, that it changed his life forever. He was a man of command. He understood authority. He knew that an order given from a general in Rome was an order that was obeyed 1,000 miles away. He knew that a word spoken by a king was a word that carried with it the power to change the lives of his subjects in a distant land. And in that moment of profound clarity, he understood that my authority was far greater than any king on earth. My word was not just a suggestion, it was a command that even the laws of nature would obey. He sent his servants back to me with a new message, a message that would shock and astound those who were with me. They had come to ask me to travel 100 miles, but the new message was an act of audacious faith. Lord, do not trouble yourself, for I am not worthy to have you come under my roof, but only speak a word, and my servant will be healed. The words were a hammer blow to the very foundation of their understanding of faith. They had believed that a miracle required my physical presence, but this man believed that my power was so great that my word was enough. He was a Gentile, a man who was an outsider to the faith of my people, but he had a faith that was greater than any I had seen in all of Israel. His breaking point was not a moment of defeat, but a moment of absolute surrender. He was not asking for a favor. He was declaring a truth. He was not begging for a miracle. He was believing in one. He had come to the end of his own power, and in that place of utter helplessness, he had found a faith that was not based on what he could see, but on the unseen power of a God who knew no distance, no limits, and no boundaries. He had given up on his own strength, and in that act of surrender, he had found a power that was truly limitless. The profound spiritual shift in the Centurion's life was not a moment of quiet change, but a public and powerful declaration. When I heard his words, I was filled with a profound and overwhelming joy. I turned to the crowd, to my disciples, and to the elders who had brought me the first message, and I told them the truth of what I had seen. I tell you, not even in Israel have I found such faith. My words were a revelation, a testament to a man who had understood the very nature of my power. The Centurion's faith was not a small, quiet belief. It was a bold public declaration that my word was enough. The shift was not just in the Centurion, but in all who heard the story. They had seen a man of great authority reduced to a beggar, and now they were seeing a beggar with the faith of a king. The man who had every reason to believe in his own power had come to understand that my power was not bound by the physical world. He did not need me to travel 100 miles. He did not need me to touch his son. He simply needed me to speak a word. And in that moment, he had a revelation that the most pious and learned men of Israel had failed to grasp. He sent his servants back to Capernaum, and they began their journey with a sense of hope and wonder. They did not know what would happen, but they knew that they had witnessed something extraordinary. The Centurion waited in Cana, his heart filled with a peace that he had never known before. He had placed his entire trust not in a physical healing, but in a spiritual one. He was not waiting for an answer to his prayer. He was waiting for the manifestation of his faith. He had no way of knowing if his son was well, but he knew in his heart that the miracle had already occurred. The shift was a powerful lesson for my disciples and for all who heard the story. They had seen a faith that was so pure, so unburdened by the limitations of this world, that it had caused a ripple through the very fabric of existence. The man's faith had not been a product of his religion, but of his heart, a deep and abiding trust in a power that was far greater than his own. The purpose of this story was not just to tell of a man who was healed, but to reveal the very nature of my Father's kingdom. The Centurion was a living, breathing sermon on the true meaning of faith. His faith was not based on what he could see, but on what he knew to be true. He understood that my authority was not limited by physical presence. My word was not just a suggestion. It was a divine command that even sickness and death would obey. I was teaching them that the distance between me and you is not a physical one, but a spiritual one. The centurion, a man who was far from the temple and far from the faith of my people, was spiritually closer to me than the many who stood around me that day. His faith was a testament to the truth that a heart that trusts in my word is a heart that is truly connected to me. I had a purpose for him, a purpose that went far beyond the healing of his son. I had come to heal his heart, to give him a faith that was so pure, so unburdened by doubt, that it would be a light to all who saw him. The centurion's story is a profound and beautiful parable of what it means to truly believe. It is a story about a man who had everything, but in his moment of total helplessness, he was able to recognize that his greatest authority was no match for the true power of a God who spoke the world into being. His purpose was not just to receive a miracle, but to be a living testament to the truth that my power knows no distance, no limits, and no boundaries. He was a Roman, an outsider, and yet he had a faith that was so great that it would be a lesson for all of time. The story ends with a final, beautiful revelation. The servants who had been sent back to Capernaum with the centurion's new message arrived back at his home and found a miracle waiting for them. The boy who had been dying was now perfectly well. They asked him when the fever had left him, and the boy's father, a man who had waited with a deep and abiding peace, knew the answer. The fever left him at the 7th hour. It was the exact moment that I had spoken the word in Cana, 100 miles away. The centurion's faith had been rewarded, his word had been honored, and his son had been healed. The closing impact of this story is felt not just in the centurion's home, but in the hearts of every person who has ever heard this story. It is a profound and unsettling truth. The greatest gift we can receive, the healing of our own impossible burdens, is not just a gift to be cherished, but a command to be lived out in our own lives. We are not just receivers of grace, we are channels of it. The centurion's story is a profound reminder that a heart that trusts in my word is a heart that will always find its way to freedom. So, as I look upon you, my children, I see your own burdens, your own impossible situations, your own heartaches. I am telling you now in this moment that my power knows no distance. I do not need to be physically present to heal your heart, to save your soul, to bring you peace. I simply need you to believe. So go now, and be the believers. For it is in the act of trusting in my word that you truly understand the power you have received. I want you to know that the man's story is your story. The world has taught you to believe that you must be worthy, you must be close, and you must prove your faith. But I tell you, all you need is a heart that trusts in my word, for my power is not limited by your location or your station in life. You do not need to come to me. I have already come to you. Your heartaches, your fears, and your impossible burdens are not a barrier to me. The man's son was 100 miles away, and yet my word traveled instantly across that distance and healed him. Your burdens may seem far away from me, but I tell you, a single word from me is enough to change your life. Do not believe the lie that you are alone or that you are too far gone. The man understood that I am a king whose authority knows no bounds. He knew that I did not need to be physically present to command the fever to break. I am here to tell you that the power that created the universe is the same power that is here for you now. My word is not just a suggestion. It is a creative force that can bring healing, peace, and hope to your life. Your faith, no matter how small, is a powerful force. It is the very currency of my kingdom. The man's faith, a single act of trust, moved mountains and brought a miracle to his home. Your simple act of surrender, your willingness to believe in my word, can bring a miracle to your life. So I ask you now, what is the impossible situation in your life? What is the burden you have been carrying? I am speaking a word of healing to you now. Do not wait for me to arrive. Simply believe that I am already there. Your miracle is not on its way. It has already begun. The centurion's faith proved that my power knows no distance. Your story and your life are no different. Don't just watch this miracle. Believe in it for yourself. If this message brought you hope, please like this video to help it reach more people, and share it with someone who is waiting for their own miracle. And remember to subscribe to the channel so you never miss another message of faith.